Indians can never afford to forget the conditions in which we found our country at the onset of independence. From a nation that had once been amongst the world's richest and which, as late as 1820, accounted for 23% of global GDP, we had been reduced by 1947 into one of the poorest, most backward, most illiterate, and diseased societies on earth. From 1900 to 1947, the rate of growth of Indian economy was not even 1%. The imperial rule left a society with 16% literacy, practically no domestic industry, and over 90% living below what we today would call the poverty line. The impoverishment of India was the starkest reality that India's nationalist leaders had to face. It was therefore natural that a domestic transformation should be the overriding priority, even in the making of India's foreign policy. This is where non alignment came in. Non alignment was not a policy of neutrality, as some, like John Foster Dulles, strongly called it. In practice, non alignment meant that India tried with varying degrees of successes to have good relations with all the major powers, irrespective of ideology, including both the US and the Soviet Union. We built economic links wherever we could serve our development. We constructed the public sector Bhilai and Bokaro steel plants with Soviet Union, but we also received PL-480 wheat and green revolution technology from the United States. The avoidance of external entanglements was intended to give us the space to pursue our own development. As a non-aligned country, India engaged in an active peace diplomacy on disarmament. India also pursued the anti-imperial ideals. And in the emerging world of free and independent states, India was able to play an active role in institutions of global governance, notably my own organization, the United Nations, and the Bretton Woods institutions. Arguably, in the early decades of India's independence, this policy gave India a standing in the world out of all proportions to its modest economic and military power. The bipolar world of those days was one of uncompromising superpowers. The means available to India in its foreign policy were extremely limited. The results of the non aligned foreign policy were quite remarkable and helped lay the foundations of a diversified industrial base, a platform of excellence in higher education, and most importantly, our independent strategic capabilities. However, the defeat in the war with China in 1962 exposed the hollowness of India's claims to global leadership. The country's standing went down in the eyes of the world. But was the non aligned foreign policy out of compulsion or choice? To be brutally honest, India was much more open to the West in the early years. It was driven away by the US and the UK. The West was leaning towards Islamic Pakistan, seen as a doughty ally against godless communism, and India's domestic economic preference for a socialist pattern of society with bureaucrats rather than businessmen understandably found little favor in the West. In fact, the US Congress once passed a resolution refusing to help India construct a public sector steel plant since it was not the United States' business to help build socialism in India. The West was noticeably sympathetic to Pakistan over Kashmir, an issue on which India was supported by the Soviet Union. It was only in the late 1960s India's non alignment took a distinctive Soviet coloration, and a major shift in India's foreign policy happened in 1971 with the formal signing of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and Cooperation with Soviet Russia. India was now officially aligned. The Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation was occasioned by Bangladesh crisis, the largest refugee movement in human history, where 10 million Bengalis from East Pakistan flooded into India. This treaty was also occasioned by fear of a possible two-front war with both China and Pakistan. But then, in 1991, the world changed. The reforms and opening up of our economy coincided with the end of the bipolar Cold War world. And in the following years and decades, the world economy and world trade grew at a pace that was unprecedented in human history. Since 1947, India has raised literacy from 16% to more than 80% today, reduced child mortality and increased life expectancy from 26 to 72, and raised the rate of growth of Indian economy from 1% to the world's fourth largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. India's geography, its proximity to the Indian Ocean, its political culture, environment, its domestic institutions and federal structure all play a vital role in making of its foreign policy. We will decipher in a few subsequent videos how the institutions of YouTube and not Twitter are affecting India's foreign policy. Today, India's soft power, a concept that we will talk about at length in our subsequent videos, stretches across the globe, with our popular cinema, butter chicken, and cricket influencing the hearts and minds of foreigners almost everywhere. New powers are rising, new alliances are forming, and we are witnessing the rise of new global power in China. Challenges in India's immediate neighborhood, particularly in Pakistan and Afghanistan, but also in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, have made us conscious that our development is vulnerable to the impact of forces and events beyond our borders. Today, whether you're a resident of Delhi, Durban, or Dallas, whether you are from New Zealand or Namibia, it is simply not realistic to think only in terms of your own country. Our health, our security, our prosperity, quality of life, and for those who are launching their own ventures, your businesses are increasingly affected by what happens beyond our borders. And that means we can simply no longer afford to be indifferent about our neighbors, however distant they may appear. There's a lot to ponder, not just in foreign policy, but also in history, philosophy, economics, and business. So subscribe to this channel and press on the bell icon so that you are notified whenever the next video is uploaded. Good luck, take care, and stay safe.